The Washington quarter is one of the most familiar coins in American history. Millions of people handle it every single day without giving it a second thought. But hidden among the ordinary quarters minted in 1965 lies an extraordinary error coin, one that has turned heads in the numismatic world and ignited excitement among collectors and treasure hunters alike. This isn't just a coin. It's a piece of history, a rare mistake that transformed what should have been a 25-cent piece into a collector's dream worth tens of thousands of dollars. In fact, depending on condition, this 1965 Washington quarter error can be worth anywhere from $68,000 to as much as $140,500. It sounds unbelievable, but the truth behind it is even more fascinating. The year 1965 was one of the most dramatic turning points in American coinage. For decades, quarters had been struck in 90% silver. Silver dimes, quarters, and half dollars clinked together with a distinctive sound that older generations remember well. But by the early 1960s, silver prices were rising. The metal content of these coins was becoming more valuable than their face value. People began hoarding silver coins, and the United States Mint realized it had a problem. If silver was removed from circulation coins, production could continue without the risk of shortages, and so the decision was made. Starting in 1965, quarters were no longer struck in silver but in a new copper-nickel clad composition. These new quarters had a pure copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy. The transition was rushed, and the mint was under tremendous pressure to meet demand. To make things even more chaotic, mint marks were suspended from 1965 to 1967 to discourage hoarding by collectors. That meant every quarter struck during those years carried no mint mark at all, no matter whether it was minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. This was a unique moment in U.S. coinage history, a time of experimentation, change, and confusion. And it was in that confusion that one of the most valuable minting mistakes in modern coinage history slipped through. 1965 Washington quarters struck on silver planchets. Because the transition from silver to clad happened so suddenly, leftover silver planchets from 1964 remained in the mint's machinery. A few of those planchets accidentally made it through in 1965 and were struck with the new 1965 date. This created a rare transitional error. A coin that should have been struck on copper-nickel instead appeared in silver, even though silver quarters were officially discontinued after 1964. These coins are not supposed to exist, yet they do, and they've become one of the most sought-after U.S. coin errors of the 20th century. Collectors immediately recognized the importance of this error. Unlike ordinary clad 1965 quarters, which show the telltale copper edge when you look at the side of the coin, the silver 1965 error quarters are a uniform silver color. They're also slightly heavier than clad coins because of their 90% silver content. These differences may seem small, but they make all the difference in the world when it comes to value. Where an ordinary 1965 quarter is worth 25 cents, a 1965 silver error quarter can fetch anywhere from $68,000 to $140,500 depending on condition and demand. Auction stories surrounding these coins are legendary. In one instance, a 1965 silver Washington quarter surfaced in pristine condition, authenticated by professional grading services, and when it hit the auction block, the competition was fierce. Collectors knew that opportunities like this come along only once in a lifetime. The price soared as bidders refused to back down, and by the time the auctioneer's gavel fell, the coin had realized well into six figures. That single quarter, meant to be just another piece of pocket change, had become a treasure worth more than a luxury car. What makes this coin so powerful in the collector's market is the combination of rarity, history, and error. Transitional errors are always highly prized because they show the mint's human side, the fact that even in a system designed for precision, mistakes can happen. But this isn't just any mistake. It's tied to one of the biggest changes in U.S. coinage history, the moment silver disappeared from everyday coins. Owning one is like owning a piece of that transition, a coin that stands on the line between two eras. Think about it. Billions of clad quarters were produced in 1965, yet only a tiny handful of silver planchets slipped through. That means the odds of finding one are astronomically small. But the possibility exists, and that possibility fuels the passion of treasure hunters. Anyone could, in theory, stumble upon one in an old coin collection, in a roll of quarters, or tucked away in a forgotten jar of change. The thought that a coin worth $140,500 could be hiding in plain sight is enough to keep collectors searching. But these aren't the only errors tied to the 1965 quarter. Some off-center strikes, double die varieties, and even wrong planchet errors have been discovered, though none come close to the fame and value of the silver transitional errors. Still, they serve as a reminder that the mint's hectic production environment during that period created multiple opportunities for mistakes. Each error has its own story, and each story adds to the richness of coin collecting as a hobby. Condition plays a huge role in determining the value of these coins. A silver 1965 quarter found in circulation, showing wear from decades of use, will still command thousands of dollars. But an example that has been preserved in mint state with no signs of wear can skyrocket in price. That's why professional grading is so important. A coin certified and encapsulated by a trusted grading service provides confidence to buyers and sellers alike, ensuring authenticity and condition are guaranteed. The most dramatic cases are coins that appear almost flawless, coins that have been hidden away since the day they were struck. When one of these shows up at auction, the bidding war isn't just about the coin itself. It's about bragging rights, prestige, and the thrill of owning something that very few others can claim. The pride of holding a quarter that's not only rare but historically significant drives collectors to spend sums that most people would never associate with pocket change. Now let's put this in perspective. Imagine two people sitting at a diner in the late 1960s, both paying their bills with loose change. One person spends a clad 1965 quarter without thinking. The other unknowingly spends a silver 1965 era quarter. For the waiter collecting the coins, they all look the same. But decades later, that one silver quarter might sell for $68,000 or more. That's how small decisions in the past can create huge differences in the present. The 1965 silver quarter error is also a symbol of how closely collectors pay attention to details. To the untrained eye, a quarter is a quarter. But to someone who knows what to look for, the differences stand out. The weight, the sound, the edge color. Tiny clues that separate an ordinary coin from one that could change your life. This is why coin collecting is often described as part treasure hunt, part history lesson, and part detective work. Stories continue to circulate of people finding 1965 silver quarters in inherited collections, old rolls from the bank, or forgotten stashes of change. Each time one is discovered, it sends ripples of excitement through the collector community. The value of these coins isn't just in the metal or the rarity. It's in the thrill of discovery, the possibility that hidden treasures are still waiting to be uncovered. The range of $68,000 to $140,500 isn't just a number. It's a symbol of how much collectors are willing to invest in rarity and history. For some, it's an investment, a way to own a tangible piece of the past that will likely only grow in value. For others, it's about passion, the joy of holding something unique that connects them directly to a specific moment in American history. Either way, the value of the 1965 silver quarter error goes far beyond money. What makes this coin even more fascinating is its accessibility. Unlike ancient coins locked away in museums, or ultra-rare pieces that only the wealthiest collectors can afford, the 1965 silver quarter error started its life as an ordinary coin, meant for everyday transactions. That connection to everyday life is what makes it so appealing. It's not just a coin for the elite. It's a coin that could, at least theoretically, pass through anyone's hands. And that's why collectors continue to chase the dream of finding one. The knowledge that a quarter, a simple piece of change, can be worth up to $140,500 keeps the hunt alive. It's not just about the money. It's about the mystery, the chase, and the possibility of uncovering a piece of history that almost never should have existed. Every time a new discovery is reported, it renews hope and fuels interest. Collectors rush to check their change, to go through old coin rolls, and to examine inherited collections with fresh eyes. Because at the end of the day, the 1965 Washington quarter error is proof that treasures can still be found in the most ordinary places. And that's what makes it legendary. Every now and then, Something as ordinary as the change in your pocket can hide an extraordinary secret. Imagine reaching for a quarter, something you've done countless times at vending machines, laundromats, or toll booths, and realizing that the coin you're holding isn't just worth 25 cents. It's worth more than some people's annual salary. That's exactly the case with a very rare and very valuable 1992 U.S. Washington quarter-dollar coin error. At first glance, it looks just like any other quarter minted that year, but under the right circumstances and with the right error, it could fetch a staggering $44,000 to as much as $110,200 in value. That's the kind of discovery that makes collectors' hearts race and keeps ordinary people double-checking their pocket change. To understand why this particular coin has become such a sensation, we need to go back and look at the Washington quarter's place in American history. First introduced in 1932, the quarter was designed to honor George Washington on the bicentennial of his birth. The design by sculptor John Flanagan features Washington's left-facing profile on the obverse, while the reverse traditionally carried a heraldic eagle. Over the decades, the Washington quarter became one of the most recognized and widely circulated coins in the United States. By 1992, the design was still in full use, though the U.S. Mint was already preparing for future changes that would eventually lead to the 50-state quarters program at the end of the decade. Most 1992 quarters are common. Billions were produced at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and they continue to circulate today. But within those billions, a handful of coins emerged with minting errors that made them dramatically more valuable than their 25-cent face value. It is these rare errors that have transformed a regular quarter into a piece worth tens of thousands of dollars. So, what kind of errors make the 1992 Washington quarter so valuable? Among the most notable are double dies, off-center strikes, and transitional planchet errors. A double die occurs when the coin's design is impressed onto the die more than once at slightly different angles. The result is a coin where certain parts of the design, letters, numbers, or Washington's features, appear doubled. On a 1992 quarter, this might show up in the word liberty, in the motto "In God We Trust," or in the date itself. The doubling effect is often subtle but unmistakable to trained eyes, and when dramatic, it can catapult a coin's value into the tens of thousands. Off-center strikes are another type of error that captures collectors' imaginations. These occur when the coin blank isn't properly aligned during the striking process, resulting in a quarter where part of the design is missing and the rest looks shifted. A slight off-center strike might be interesting but only moderately valuable, whereas a dramatic strike, say where a large portion of Washington's profile is missing, can send collectors scrambling and values soaring. Perhaps the most fascinating are transitional errors, where a coin is struck on the wrong type of planchet. Planchets are the metal discs used to strike coins, and occasionally, a planchet meant for another denomination or even another year gets mixed into the press. For example, a 1992 quarter struck on a copper penny planchet, or one accidentally struck on the metal composition intended for a different coin, becomes a unique and extremely valuable piece. These freak accidents in the minting process result in one-of-a-kind coins that are highly coveted by collectors. What's incredible about the 1992 Washington quarter error is not just the type of mistake, but the value collectors are willing to assign to it. A single error quarter from this year, in the right condition and with the right rarity, has been appraised and sold for anywhere between $44,000 and $110,200. Imagine holding a small piece of metal that you thought was worth a quarter, only to find out it's worth as much as a brand new luxury car. That's the thrill of coin collecting and the magic of minting errors. Condition, of course, plays a huge role in determining value. A 1992 error quarter that's heavily worn from circulation will still have significant value, but it may fetch closer to the lower end of that $44,000 range. On the other hand, if the coin is in pristine, uncirculated condition and authenticated by grading companies like PCGS or NGC, the value can skyrocket to the top of the scale, easily surpassing $100,000. Collectors and investors alike are eager to own such pieces, not just for their rarity but also for the sense of history and uniqueness they represent. The 1990s were an interesting time for U.S. coinage. The mint was operating at high capacity to meet demand, producing billions of coins each year, and yet quality control still allowed for these extraordinary mistakes to slip through. That's part of the allure, knowing that even in a modern era with advanced minting technology, accidents still happened, and those accidents gave us treasures like the 1992 Washington quarter error. Imagine being the person who first discovered one. Perhaps it was a coin roll hunter going through dozens of rolls from the bank, searching for anything unusual. Maybe it was someone casually glancing at their change and noticing that something looked odd about the date or the lettering. That moment of realization, when a coin reveals itself to be far more than what it appears, is pure excitement. And when that coin is later authenticated and valued at over $44,000, climbing all the way to $110,200, the story becomes legendary. Collectors love these stories because they remind us that treasures are still out there, hiding in plain sight. Unlike ancient coins buried in the ground or gold coins locked away in old shipwrecks, these modern errors can realistically still be found in circulation. That possibility fuels the hunt, keeps collectors searching through pocket change, and inspires new enthusiasts to join the hobby. But let's pause and think about why someone would pay over $100,000 for a quarter. It's not just about the metal. It's about rarity, history, and the thrill of ownership. Error coins like the 1992 Washington quarter are unique artifacts of the minting process. They represent a mistake that slipped past the mint's quality control, a one-in-a-billion fluke that can never be replicated exactly the same way again. For a collector, owning such a piece is like owning a piece of minting history, a physical reminder that even in a system designed for perfection, human error or machine error creates something extraordinary. The rarity of these coins cannot be overstated. Out of the billions of quarters minted in 1992, only a handful carry these dramatic errors. That's why their value is so high. Each one is essentially unique, and when two collectors both want the same coin, the price can quickly escalate at auction. That's how a piece of pocket change ends up selling for $110,200. For anyone listening right now, the big takeaway is this: don't overlook the coins in your possession. That jar of change on your dresser, those rolls of quarters from the bank, even the spare change rattling around in your car. Any one of them could hide a treasure. Pay close attention to the details. Look for doubling in the letters and numbers. Check if the design looks off-center, or notice if the coin feels different in size or metal composition. Any of those could be signs of a rare and valuable error. The 1992 Washington quarter error is proof that incredible discoveries can still be made in the most ordinary places. A coin meant to be just another piece of change has become a symbol of luck, rarity, and opportunity. And with values ranging from $44,000 to $110,200, it's a coin that has changed lives, turned collectors into legends, and made everyday people into treasure hunters. So the next time you're handed a quarter, take a closer look. It might not just be 25 cents. It might be the coin that takes you from spare change to a once-in-a-lifetime discovery worth over $100,000. And that's the magic of the 1992 U.S. Washington quarter-dollar coin error. A tiny piece of metal that proves the extraordinary can hide within the ordinary, waiting for someone sharp-eyed enough to find it.